today. And so for me, for my trigger point ball, I normally go with a tennis ball. I really like this just because it's got a little bit more give to it. So you can use this, especially if you're going against the floor like I am, as opposed to a wall or something. You can take off a little bit more pressure off of certain muscle groups that you're working. So, but we'll get into that whenever we get there. So let's go ahead and get started. Our focus for today is going to be primarily with the shoulder and the scapula. So we're sticking mainly to upper body today. It's super, super important to be able to mobilize that both for just everyday movements, anything you're going to be doing with your arms, reaching, bending, twisting. Most of the time, you're going to get a lot of that activity from your shoulder joints and in part from those shoulder blades or the scapula. And so we want to make sure that we've got that proper form, activating those muscles whenever we do any sorts of activities, those muscles in our back. And then we want to make sure that we have the range of motion to be able to do that without hurting ourselves. So I'm going to put our trigger point ball down to the side. We're actually going to start out with our foam roller today. You know what? Don't need my shoes for today's workout. We're going to take those off. And we're going to go ahead and get down on our mats. And we're going to start out by foam rolling the lats. So what we want to target is down our torso on the posterior or back side of our body. The way that I normally find this is I will place that foam roller right underneath my armpit. Now I'm on my side right now. I'm going to slightly shift facing the ceiling now. And now from here, we're just going to slowly roll up and down your torso. Now, the lats are technically a pretty large sheet of muscle tissue that pretty much covers the entire back. But what can really get tight and limit our mobility in our shoulders is this upper portion that's right underneath and behind the armpit. And so you can even hang out there. If you find any sensitive spots around that area, then you can just hold pressure on that spot. And then that's going to help to release the muscle. So a lot of times, muscles that are limiting our mobility, they can be tight, and just stretching them alone might not do the trick. And so we can release them and relieve some of that tension by foam rolling, putting tension on them, and then releasing. All right, let's go ahead and do the same thing on the other side. I started on my right, so now I'm going to go to my left. And so I'm just extending that arm out. I'm going right underneath my armpit, and then I'm slightly shifting myself away from my midline. If you go directly on your side, you'll kind of miss the lats, and you'll more or less be rolling up and down your ribs. We don't really want that. And so I found a sensitive spot right here. So I'm just going to hang out there, putting constant pressure on that tender spot. And you want to make sure anytime you're putting that constant pressure on a pressure point or a tight piece of muscle tissue, that you're putting enough pressure so that you can feel it. It's constant tension, but it's not painful. If you're going so deep that you've got a sharp pain, then you want to pull back from that. All right. Let's go ahead and move on. And we're going to go to our trigger point ball. You can use pretty much any ball, round object. You can use a lacrosse ball, tennis ball, a specified trigger point ball, but anything where we can really focus in where we're placing pressure. So we're going to start out by rolling the chest. So most of the time, whenever I roll out the chest with the ball, I'll basically go from the front of my shoulder and I'll go down a diagonal along one side of my chest. And that's basically going to stretch from right below your collarbone all the way down until you get to your sternum. And so you can just roll all throughout that area there. And as always, if you hit a tight spot, a tender spot, you can just hold and place pressure on that particular point to help release that area. Now for me, I normally get a bit of tightness and quite a bit of sensitivity right underneath my collarbone around my upper chest. And so I'll hang out there for a good bit of time. But you go to wherever you feel that tenderness. All right, I'm going to go ahead and go to my right side. The great thing with this, it doesn't take much pressure with the trigger point ball to really feel it. And so if I were doing this with a foam roller, I'd probably be up against the wall or the floor to put my body weight into it. But since I'm using a smaller object that can really pinpoint, I'm going to just use my hand to press down into that muscle tissue. All right. Very nice job. Okay, so next up, I am going to do this against the floor. You can do this against the wall if you would like to. I'm going to focus. I'm going to take my ball and I'm going to place it right behind the back of my trap. And so the traps, they come up connecting your neck to your shoulders. They go further into your back, but that's normally what we think of whenever we talk about the traps. What we're going to do is we're going to trigger point that area. So I'm going to take my trigger point ball. I'm going to place it on that point on my shoulders, right in between my shoulder bone and my neck. And then I'm going to bring it directly to the back of my shoulder. So now from here, I'm going to lay on the floor and I'm just going to keep constant pressure on that point. One thing that you can do is you can pull that arm up and bring it back down to your side. You'll probably feel as you go through that range of motion that certain ranges will be a little bit more tender or uncomfortable than others. That's okay, as long as it's not painful. Nice job. All right, I'm gonna do the same thing on the other side. So I'm going to my left side now, finding that point on my shoulders in between my neck and my shoulder bone. And again, we never want to roll bone. So if you feel bone, then we're in the wrong place. Let me move this out of the way. Then I'm going to do the same thing on my left side. I can already tell that I've got a little bit more of a limitation on my left side than my right. And that's completely normal. A lot of us have imbalances, so we'll be tighter on one side than another. We'll have less mobility on one side than another. And that's fine. This is one of the reasons why we do this, is to help fix those imbalances. And a lot of times you might be tighter on your dominant side, which is normal. I'm left-handed, so it makes sense most of the time. I get tighter on the left side, especially in the upper body. All right. Nice job. Okay, last thing that we're going to do with this is we are going to trigger point on our back in between our shoulder blades, in between our scapula. So you've got some smaller muscles that you can find to the outside of the spine and directly inside of your scapula. A lot of times, if you're ever getting a massage or anything like that, a lot of times they'll really spend time working out knots, digging into the inside of these shoulder blades. That's where we want to place that trigger point ball. And I'm going to go against the floor. You can do this against the floor or the wall. The wall will be putting less pressure against Oh no, my ball. Yeah, you gotta kind of work it a little bit. Now I'm gonna shift my body weight to make sure I'm right about in the right spot. So I'm making sure now I'm placing constant pressure on my rhomboids, which are one of those smaller muscles that we're targeting. And I'm making sure that I'm not pressing against my spine, and I'm also not pressing the bone of my shoulder blade. You want to go right in between those two areas. And it's probably going to be a little bit tender, so you can kind of pull that side, pull your body weight off of it a little bit. Again, you can work through a range of motion with this as well. I would be careful working through the range of motion with this because you'll find it can get pretty sensitive in certain areas. All right, nice job. Let's go ahead and do the same thing on the other side. So now I'm just going to move this to my right side, making sure that I got that ball on my back, in between my spine and my shoulder blade, not touching bone, just working with muscle tissue. Great job. Hold constant pressure. And this is a great thing to do in any mobility at the beginning of any mobility session. If you come to quite a few of our mobility classes, you'll see a lot of the times, not a lot, I always start out with foam rolling and trigger point, and then we go on to stretching, and then we go on to activation, to exercises that are going to activate muscle groups. And that's because mobility is compromised of all of those pieces, not just one or the other. All right. Nice job. Okay, so we are done with our trigger point ball now. So you can get rid of that. I'm going to go back to the foam roller for just 1 second. We're not even going to roll anything. We're just going to move into a little bit of spinal extension, some thoracic extension. So we're going to place that behind our back. I want to place this below my shoulder blades. And so you don't want to be on your shoulder blades or above them. You want the foam roller to be below your shoulder blades. Take your hands, place them behind your back. Pull your elbows as far back as you can. And then we are going to allow our torso to fall back. Now, as you do this, you want to do it very slowly and carefully and continue to keep those elbows back. If you start to feel any discomfort, any pain, immediately pull back from that. Because we are working with the spine, we just want to be extra careful. And I'm just doing nice, slow repetitions. I'm going to go for one more. All right, great job. All right, let's go ahead and put those foam rollers to the side. We are going to move on. We're going to move on to a little bit of stretching. So one thing that I don't have with me now, I'm going to grab my box real quick. You can do this next stretch with a chair, a desk, any elevated surface, something for you to place your hands on. And so just grab whatever desk chair is near you, or if you have a table nearby. But what we're going to do with this is a stretch in our lats. And so the way we're going to do this, I'm going to place my elbows on my elevated object, and then I'm shifting my hips back. Allow your chest to fall into the open space. And then just relax. Now this can also be thought of as a tricep stretch because you are stretching out the triceps, but it really gets into the lats which is what we started out foam rolling. So we're just going to hold here for a few seconds. Nice job. Okay, and then we're going to go into the chest. That chest gets tight. It pulls our shoulders forward, giving us that bad posture. So we want to make sure we keep that chest stretched out. We're actually going to do what we did earlier in our death stretch today. I'm going to take my arm, put it at a 90-degree angle, forearm down on my chair, and then I'm just going to fall forward. And as you do so, you're going to get a big stretch in your chest. Make sure you're puffing your chest out. The further forward that you fall, the deeper of a stretch that you're going to get. So just hold here for a few more seconds. Great job. Same thing, other side. So now I'm going to go from my left side, palm face down, 90-degree angle in the arm, fall forward. Try to tell that left side to relax a little bit. Great job. Okay. You can go ahead and get rid or set aside your chair. Next up, we're going to do a little bit of activation exercises. This is super important for mobility because not only do we want to be able to passively stretch into a certain position, but we want to make sure that our shoulders and our shoulder blades can pull us into a certain range of motion that we are desiring using that muscle activation. So what we're going to do to start out with that, you can do this one of two ways. We are going to either go into a high or a low plank position. So for the high plank position, you can be arms outstretched. For a low plank position, you can go onto your forearms. Either way, the way that we're going to do this is by holding our arms in the constant position that they're starting out in, whether it be extended or in our traditional plank. And then we are allowing our shoulders to fall back, and then we're pressing our shoulders forward. And so whenever we do that, then you're going to allow gravity to pull your torso down while keeping your arms straight, and then you're spreading those scapula apart. So you're not going to be actually going into a push-up. You're just doing these scapula push-ups. So all the work is being done with those muscles that are retracting and protracting your shoulder blades. Do a couple more. If you need to, you can go on your knees and you can still do this movement. All right, nice job. We've got one more exercise to do. So what we're going to do for this, we're going to start out laying flat on our stomach. And now from here, we're going to extend our arms overhead. From here, you're going to pull your chest and your thighs up off the ground. Keep that core tight as you do so. And then you're going to pull your arms, keeping those arms straight. Pull them all the way back behind your back. And then return. And then you can relax. Let's do 5 good ones of these. And we're going super, super slow. Pull those shoulders back as far as you can. And return. That was number 2. You want to keep tension in your core as you do this to keep that chest and thighs off the floor. 3. Pull those shoulders back. That's number 4. Last one. Here we go. Great job. Fantastic job, guys. That is our mobility session for today. We went all the way through release, stretching, and activation. So fantastic job, guys. Real quick, before you go, if you are taking part in our Keep Fit Performance, go ahead and stick around and I will pull the question of the day up.